What's up guys, Racing Nation TV here, welcome to the channel. And today we're going to be doing something a bit different. We're going to be talking about my $500 simulator, heading over to the Indy Pro 2000 driver Braden Eve's house, and we're going to be checking out his $8,000 simulator. And we're going to be talking about things like, you know, if you can be as fast on a $500 sim as you can on an $8,000 sim, if it really makes a difference, what differences there are. We're also going to be talking about, you know, if you're first getting into sim racing, what wheels you should be looking at, what you should be looking at if you're looking to upgrade, just if you're looking for better quality, better comfort, you know, what you should be looking for when you're purchasing things for sim racing, and overall just to get the most out of your dollar. So let's get started. Let's talk about my rig. So I have a Thrustmaster everything. I have the F1 rim, a TX base, and T3PA Pro pedals. My rig, this is a DIY wooden rig that my dad built me for Christmas one year, like a year ago. I think it's been a year now. The seat that I have is like a 2003-ish thing. I've had it for years and years and years. It started out as an office chair, then it was, you know, my sim racing chair at a desk, and then now it's mounted into the sim rig itself. So now it has an actual purpose now of what it was probably intended to be. It's not terrible. It is what it is. So yeah, so my rig cost me $293. But retail, like if you don't buy the rim on Black Friday or the pedals on Black Friday, like if you just bought it new, it would be $557. But I of course went the cheap route on Black Friday, got everything then. So that's obviously not how I started. I kind of want to go over also, you know, how I started. So obviously, you know, this to now is not a huge upgrade. Like I'm not like professional level like we're gonna see with Braden, but these are my the pedals I used when I first started out. These are the base pedals that come with the Forfait Vita Italia TX, which is what I started out with. So we have these pedals, and then the rim. Before I got the F1 rim, I got this plastic thing. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. The shifters are honestly better than the TX. Although the F1 rim, my bad. But yeah, the rig I have, like I said, DIY, custom made. It cost about $100 in lumber. I think that was about it. And then the carpet on the bottom, it's a pretty nice setup. I enjoy it. The thing about a DIY setup is I can custom build it to whatever I want. So it fits me perfectly. I mean, that's the biggest thing in sim racing to me is, you know, how comfortable you are. And when you're on a desk and the desk is moving around and the pedals slide around, and then that's when you start thinking about getting a actual rig. When you start sim racing, or if you have or you do on a table, you might know what I mean. No matter how sturdy your table is, I mean, I had a desk at one point that was, you know, pretty sturdy, and it would still move around a little bit. This setup, it works for me. It's perfect for me. I'll get into recommendations and what I say at the end. But overall, this setup, I really enjoy it. The TV mount, the TV mount works well. That's another thing I enjoy about the DIY build is, you know, I can move the TV around. It's not in a specific place. So obviously I can move it down if I wanted to. I mean, it'd be a little bit of a struggle because it's wooden, you know, to take it out and, you know, drill new holes and stuff. But it's possible, and I could do it. So yeah, and where the Xbox sits in front of it, and then where my PC's gonna sit, it's all kind of came together, and it works really well for me. But obviously it's still in the mid-level kind of range. It's nowhere near professional level range like we're gonna see at Braden's. And you know, overall, as far as the Thrustmaster wheel goes, we'll talk about that later in more detail. So yeah, let's head over to Braden's house and hear him talk about his fancy $8,000 rig and what differences we can spot. Alright, so we're here at Braden Eve's house, Indy Pro 2000 driver for Exclusive Autosport, here to show you his $8,000 simulator. I'm kind of cramped down right now because we're in this is a very small room. It's perfect for the sim, but not for recording videos. So Braden, if you want to go over your setup, you know, how much things would cost, things, you know, what they do, the difference between my janky setup versus your professional setup.
Yeah, so obviously with racing being very expensive, this is an investment. Obviously, you know, investing in a sim is going to be a lot cheaper than going and doing track days all the time. So there's a couple things that are majorly different from a consumer sim The first one is going to be that this is a direct drive wheel. Fanatec just recently came out with a consumer-based direct drive wheel, but for a long time they were just basically for extremely high-end simulators. And it's going to be extremely high-end pedals as well that have a load cell that goes up to roughly 300 pounds of pressure. Triple 27-inch monitors with 144 hertz, a very high-end computer. But everything is going to be as close to real life as possible, so that when you go back and forth from real life to a sim, it's as close to the real life thing, and you can kind of practice your techniques on here as best as you can. So those are going to be the biggest things. This is a Cube Controls wheel that has all the little buttons and knobs and switches that you would ever need, as well as dual clutch paddles to make sure if you have any standing starts that you're getting the best start. We're using the iRacing service, which is basically the best service for consumer graded sims, and the racing is definitely the best of any sim out there. So that's pretty much the basics. We'll show you more in depth here as we get on the sim, but yeah, that's the basics here.
So before we move on, can you kind of tell us what the difference between a belt drive wheel like I have versus a direct drive wheel, and also can you talk a little bit about the rig itself, the actual rig?
Yeah, so a direct drive wheel means that there's no gears, there's no belts inside, it's just the actual steering shaft that goes directly into the motor, and it drives directly off that. And that eliminates a lot of the reduction in like reaction time that you'll get from the wheel. You'll get the force feedback basically immediately when it gets the information from the computer. It's going to be a lot smoother, as well as a lot more powerful. I mean, I can turn this thing up to where it'll rip my hands off if I get in a crash, and he felt it a couple times.
I hurt my thumb.
But yeah, it's going to be a lot more direct. It's going to feel a lot stronger. It's going to be a lot quicker. Your saves are all going to be a lot quicker, as well as the rig itself is super important for the simulator experience. If you have a pedal that can take up to 300 pounds of force, and you have a rig that's just a couple of, I don't know, 35 millimeter tubing, that is going to flex a lot. My old rig that I had like jolly rigged with a bunch of dumbbells on it to keep the middle from flexing out, because when I would hit the brake, the whole middle of the frame would just come up like this far off the ground, and the thing would just flex. And that takes away a lot of the fidelity that you get out of the pedal. These are the Husingfeld Ultimate pedals, so they're basically the best you can get. I have it set up in an extremely stiff position where there's almost no movement. When you hit it, it registers the actual force that you're hitting rather than a distance. When you have a consumer wheel like a G27, it's all based off distance. So you have your minimum distance or your zero position, and then your full throttle or full brake. And here, it's actually going to be given to the computer in terms of kilograms or pounds of force. So that's going to be the main difference there.
So one thing I remember you telling me was I can confirm the brakes are extremely hard to press, especially when you're not wearing racing shoes, which I forgot to bring. But one thing you were telling me was the pedal was actually, a little bit softer than an actual a car, which is incredible to me with how stiff. Because I was probably pressing the pedal like that far in, it was insane, and I wasn't even using half the brake from the monitor, which is just insane. So we're gonna move on. We're gonna talk about kind of our opinions on what you should buy at a more cheaper level, or what you should look for when you're upgrading, and just some general opinions on what we think of sim racing.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about people when they're first getting into sim racing, because right now there's been a huge influx of people coming into iRacing. There's been upwards of 18,000 people on the service, whereas before the corona, can I say that?
Maybe. I'll bleep it if I find out more.
Okay, well, before the coronavirus,
and if you're watching this 6 years from now, remember that? Yeah, quarantine. Cool.
There was typically around 6,000 people. So there's like 3,000 people, or sorry, 3 times the people on the service now. So there's a lot of people getting in. There's a lot of stuff that's out of stock. You got to be really cautious about what you buy. You don't want to end up buying the wrong stuff. I would not recommend trying to go in with the idea that you're going to get a simulator like that out of the gate. I've been on iRacing since 2011. I was just showing you date that I signed up was 2011. I've been in it for 9 years. Basically half my life I've been on iRacing. That's crazy to think about, but I started out with a G27 on a desk with whatever monitor I had plugged into my laptop, and went like that for probably about 2 or 3 years, I want to say, before I got any cockpit, but still used a G27 until last year. So to be honest, you can run up front at competitive sim races with a G27 or a G29 or whatever you do, as long as you really put the time in, to be honest. So I would not recommend trying to go out and get all of that high-end, extremely high-end stuff out of the gate. Unless you're racing in real life, that's a different story. But a G29, a Thrustmaster steering wheel, a Fanatic steering wheel is going to be plenty good to get into sim racing, and it's going to do you very well for a long time.
So you said you started with a Logitech. That's one thing I want to kind of talk about here. So have really at lower range, you have your Thrustmaster, Logitech, and then a little bit more mid-range is Fanatic. So what would you? I think obviously I know your answer, but the highest range Thrustmaster is like $700 or $200 for a TMX. There's like the TMX, T300, TX, TSPC Racer. Logitech, you can go with a G29 or a G920, and they're both like $300, something like that. And then Fanatic, you're gonna spend like $600. Obviously, I think the best for your bucks probably either a Thrustmaster or a Fanatic. But I know you started on Logitech, and when I was talking to you the other day, you were talking, you were speaking really highly of the Logitech, and I know our friend David Land uses one. So what wheel would you recommend for someone starting out? What would you be looking for?
I think for everyone getting into the market, or the sim racing market, I think firstly, honestly, from experience, I've sold a lot of my stuff on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. Going to get some used stuff is a good way to go. I know.
Yeah, like I mentioned, I got my TX used for like $133. So if you can find something used, then that's probably the way to start.
Yeah, I think. I mean, getting a used G27 off of Facebook Marketplace, a G29, whatever, you can get a Logitech. Fanatec is quite a bit more expensive. I mean, you're looking at upwards of $900 for a full Fanatec setup versus a G27. You're looking at $300 when that was new 7 years ago, or 10 years ago. I don't even know how long ago. It was a long time ago, but.
So I said I liked Thrustmaster and Fanatec. Is it Fanatic? How do you say it?
I don't know.
All right.
Fanatic.
But I said I like Thrustmaster and Fanatic because of the ecosystem and the customizability, and like let's say, like especially with Thrustmaster, because let's say I'm just getting started, I want to buy something basic. I can go buy the 458 Italia edition with the rim and pedals, like I showed you guys, that came with it for $350. And then let's say I want to get a little bit more serious, like a year in. And then you buy the T3PA Pro pedals or just the T3PA. There's the F1 rim, there's a Sparco rim, there's so many different rims and things to choose from to get a little bit more serious. And so that's what I did. I started out with the base, and then I got the F1 rim and the T3PA Pro. So, and then Logitech, there's like one other rim you can buy, and it's just, you're there. So I would probably suggest Thrustmaster, I think. Do you have any experience with the Thrustmaster? I
personally do not. I've never used a Thrustmaster wheel. I've heard a lot of good things about it, but at the same time, people have said that's, like the TSPC Racer, I actually almost got one of those. Mm-hmm. I did hear that it was a little bit less quality than the Fanatec, but I think it's a little bit cheaper as well. So I think, honestly, they're all great options. And when it comes to starting out, when you start to get a little bit more invested into it, the best thing to do is get a little bit higher end pedals. I think that's going to improve your driving a bit more than a steering wheel would.
So moving away from what to suggest for someone getting into it, I just want to talk about the between your rig and mine. Mm-hmm. So you starting out on Logitech on a desk, pretty much the same way anyone getting into it, or if you've been into it, got started. What are the key differences, and what do you think is the most important upgrade from it, going from is it, you know, force feedback? Is it, you know, I think, for me, I think comfort, because
Yeah.
to speak more, I think you have guys that run on like laptop setups on a desk that can be way faster than someone in a setup like that. Like, that's been proven. That's why I didn't want to make this more of like a comparison to can you be faster in that. Because it's been proven. You know, guys like Timmy Hill and Ty Majeski is #1 in iRacing, and he still uses a laptop in a G27. So I mean, I didn't want to. That's already been proven. So I think it's more comfort. So like, what do you think is the most important part of your rig versus one? You know.
Yeah. So to go into that, I think most importantly, you need to understand what your goals are. For me, my goal is to practice for real life.
Yeah.
So I want to mimic everything in real life as closely as possible. There's almost a certain point where I might turn down my braking forces, I might turn down my force feedback settings in order to potentially go a little bit faster, but it's not as close to the real thing. So I wouldn't do that, but a sim racer would. So I think you need to look at that first. It's really a comfort thing. People have been in G27s, but they're really comfortable with their setup on whatever it is, a desk with their pedals off to the side. You know, they're moving around all the time, but they just get used to it, and then they can make that work. You know, one of my good friends, Andre Castro, he raced on iRacing. He's been doing it forever. He's still on a G27 on a desk at his apartment over in Illinois at his college. So he's still extremely competitive. You're not going to get, you might get a bit more consistent from having some better pedals, but ultimately, I mean, this is all about fun. So if you're getting into it, you know, run what you have, and you can plan on upgrading eventually, but just enjoy what you have. And
I think getting into something like that, like, I think it's a big misconception coming straight into iRacing or sim racing, is because in real life most people think in the way of, you know, the more you spend the faster you go, and that's, you know, not really the case in sim racing. That's what's fun. Is it's like you don't need the big, you know, expensive pedals or the expensive rims and bases. You know, it's all about, you might get a little bit more consistent, like you said. That's the one thing I noticed, because like transitioning from the desk to my wooden sim rig, that's why I would recommend like moving to a sim rig if you want to be more serious, like, because, you know, it's not going to make you faster to get a sim rig, but it's going to make you more comfortable, and if you're more comfortable, you're honestly going to have more fun. I think, because I started having more fun when I moved to the rig, because I was at my desk with the desk shaking around and the pedals moving, and I was getting like annoyed. I was mad. And when you move to the actual, you know, rig, everything's in place, and you're just comfortable and you're having fun. And it's not going to make you faster, but it'll be more fun. So, got anything else?
I don't know. I think honestly, I think we covered a lot of stuff. Sim racing is a lot of fun. I highly recommend it for anyone that's going to be doing it. And like I said, just make sure that you know, if you're passionate about it and you want to spend some more money to get higher end stuff, you can. But you can also do it on anything. So as long as you're getting involved, to be honest, I think you know, that's the most important thing at the end of the day. I think it's a really fun thing to get involved in, and to be able to, especially right now with all the real life racers, like
you just don't know when you're going to jump in a session somewhere and end up with someone famous, you know, Graham Ray Hall, Braden Eves, you know, you might end up in a session with him.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think it's just really cool what's going on right now, and really good for the racing community as well. Like, I know a lot of people that have become really hardcore racing fans just from racing simulators. You know, they just thought it would be a fun thing to get into, and they looked at it more as a video game thing, but then they saw that whole world. And
all right, so I think we jumbled around a bit, but hopefully we gave you enough information, lots of information packed in one video. If you haven't already, go follow this guy on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and go check out Style and Aesthetic if you want to buy some merchandise and support this man. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like the video, and keep up to date for more sim racing content to come.